It's been a month since the 56-mile trail run on the Maah Daah in North Dakota. So I've had a lot of time to think and reflect and analyze the race. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the questions I've gotten from people after the race. And I am going to talk to you about what I learned during the race and kind of a self-analysis. One of the big reasons I wanted to do this type of race in the first place was to figure out how I would react in a race this long, and what would it feel like at mile 40. And now I know. So I'll tell you my thoughts on the race, and I hope you enjoy. What did I eat? Well, when I was training for the race, I trained with gels. And I figured out that if I took a gel about every hour, that staved off any hunger and it kept me going. I also used Tailwind, which has calories in it as well. So those two things kept me going. But during the race, I found out that I used the Tailwind and the gels for pretty much the first half of the race. I was just eating those. Around mile 20, I think I had a handful of Pringles. And then at about mile 29-ish, I was at an aid station and I had a slice of pizza. And I think I probably ate a few more things there, but I don't remember. And then after that, I don't think I ate another gel. But I did keep drinking Tailwind. I think I did drink we took along some tiny cans of Pop, Coke, Sprite, Orange, some Orange Crush or whatever. So I think I had a few cans of those. But then when I got to mile 40, I ate some pickles. One of the guys at the aid station convinced me to eat the pickles, and I ate them. They were really good, and I drank the juice. And then I had a half a banana there. My husband ate the other half, and I think I was eating gummy worms too. I had some really big fat gummy worms, and 3 of them was about 100 calories, and they tasted really good. So I stuffed a few of those in my waist pocket and would eat those on the run. The second question I got a lot from people was, how much did you drink? What did you drink? How did you know how much to drink? Did you have enough to drink? And when I was training for the race, I would go out in the hottest part of the day. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And then I would do my runs at that time, because I knew that this race was going to be a really hot race. And it was. I was told that it got to about 90 degrees. And in some of the areas, it could have been hotter, if you were lower in the canyon. So when I was training, I figured out how much I needed to drink in an hour. And I found out that I usually drank about 18 ounces in an hour. And that was my handheld. So 1 handheld an hour. And that was about all I needed. And I alternated between the water and the Tailwind. The third question I got asked a lot was, did my phone work? And the race rules said that you had to take your phone with you. But I put it on airplane mode for about 30 miles. And I never even used it because I was seeing my husband pretty regularly. And the reason they tell you to put it on airplane mode is because the cell service is sporadic And if you had it on, it would be searching and you'd probably lose a lot of your battery. Actually, I don't think I turned it on till mile 40. But anyway, the last part of the race, I had my phone on the whole time and I was actually Snapchatting, and I was getting instant messenger messages from Josh's friend that was there supporting him on the race and kind of giving me updates on Josh. And then I was also texting my husband. So I don't know if my phone worked the first part of the race because I didn't use it, but it was working the whole second part of the race. And by then you're close to Medora and Highway 94. Another question I've gotten was, did you wear the same shoes the entire race? And yes, I did. Although I did try to change them at mile 25 when I was going to continue on. And I was wearing a really old pair of Ultra Lone Peaks that were, I believe they were a full size too big for me. And that's kind of why I like to wear them, because in the heat my feet seem to swell up. So I tried to change into my Hoka Challengers, and my feet started cramping. I got one foot in one and it felt so terrible. My foot was just cramping up that I just put the old Ultras back on and I ran the entire race in them, and I never had an issue and they felt great. The fifth question I get is, what did Jeff do? And Jeff is my husband and he was my support crew. And yes, he had a very long day. What exactly did he do? I think the biggest thing I learned from this race was to ride out the lows. I had no idea that there would be this many lows. And when you hit a low in a race, I think the best thing to do is get to the next aid station, sit down, and if you're not feeling good, let yourself feel better. But just sit down and ride it out. Just don't make up your mind right away about what you're going to do. Another thing I learned is to hold the goal, the time goal for the race loosely, because at around mile 20, I started falling off my pace, and I knew that my goal was pretty much out of sight then. And that was really demoralizing, and I think I held that goal too close to me, when the goal all along was just to finish the race. The third thing, I don't know if I really learned this during the race, because I do this anyway. It seems like in races, my inner extrovert comes out and I talk to everybody. But during this particular race, there was only 20 people in my 50-mile race. And I talked to everyone that I ran by or ran past. And if I had not talked to Josh, I wouldn't have felt a connection to him, and I probably wouldn't have stuck around at the aid station to just explain to him what happened to me. But he really saved my race. I knew that he was struggling just like me, and then to see him go on, and he just said it, just get to the next aid station and make up your mind there. There's food, and yeah, so talk to people. The fourth thing I learned during the race, and this is really interesting to me because I train mostly alone, and so I'm alone all the time. But during the race, there were 2 stretches that were 10 or 11 miles. And during one of those stretches, I think it took me close to 3 hours because it was during the afternoon. I was walking a lot. It was like mile 29 to mile 40, and I got really lonely. When I got to the aid station at mile 40, I was just so happy to see everyone. I talked to everybody. I talked to all the aid people. I talked to the people that were waiting for their racers to come through, and I was having so much fun. I played with a dog, and it was a little bit hard to leave because I knew I was going to have to be on my own again and in the dark. So I don't know how to combat the loneliness in the next race, except just to know that it's probably going to happen. I want to know what it's like to run, power walk 50 miles. I want to know what it feels like. I started out the race euphoric. It was beautiful. I couldn't believe I was doing this. And that euphoria lasted for sure until about mile 20. I was still doing good. Between mile 20 and 25, I hit that hot canyon, and I just really didn't feel good. So I found out that I hit a big low and I quit. So I'm not sure what that says about me, but anyway, I did rejoin the race. So I must not have wanted to quit that bad, but I really felt awful. But what I did is I sat down for 45 minutes, and I just started feeling good. And then that running, the other Josh that was running the race, he came in and convinced me to keep going, and then I did. And then after that, I never felt that bad ever again in the race. My knee hurt, and so that caused me to do a lot of walking, and that was quite demoralizing too, but not like what the heat did to me in that canyon. So between mile about 30 and 40, it was like a 10 mile stretch. And in there, it was still the heat of the afternoon. I was doing a ton of walking, but I still felt good, but I wasn't sure in there. I wasn't sure if I was going to drop at mile 40 or not. But I wasn't feeling bad. But I was sort of getting on a low, and then about a mile before the aid station, I started running, and I found out that my knee didn't hurt that bad, and I could actually run. So I thought, okay, I think the last part of this race I can actually run. So I finally did leave the mile 40 aid station, and at that point I was feeling good, and it was starting to get cool, and I could run. Even though it did hurt, I stopped taking ibuprofen at that point. I don't think I had any ibuprofen since mile 30, and my knee was still feeling okay without the ibuprofen. So at mile 40, I knew I had 8 miles until the next checkpoint, and I knew that if I continued on past mile 40, I would finish the race. Even if my knee was really sore, I knew I would finish. I would just crawl over the line. Between mile 40 and 48, it was getting dark, and the temperatures were getting cool, and I was feeling really good. All this energy that I hadn't used during the day, I felt like it was just bubbling out, and I was running, and I was in good spirits. There's some things I didn't put in that race video because it was rather embarrassing to me, but I actually kind of cried for joy during this 8 mile stretch, just because I was just so happy. I was feeling good, and I knew I was going to do it. And I'm always really touched by the kindness of people, and my husband and a another guy at the mile 40 aid station had fixed up a blister I had, and it was just really touching to me that they were spending time on little old me and my blister. And also the aid people at the mile 40 were just super great people, just so nice. I left the aid station on a real high, and it continued pretty much to the end of the race. I saw my husband at that last checkpoint, and then there was another aid captain there, and that man gave me a detailed description of the last 8 miles of the course, and that really helped me out because I knew where the hills were and where I was going to be going down and the road I had to cross, and so I felt like I knew where I was, because a few times, well, I had one time where I wondered where I was off course. When I got to the last mile of the race, it was my fastest mile of the whole race, partly because it was on asphalt, but I knew I had done it, and it felt good. I ran and ran, and I can't even describe to you what it felt like seeing the glow of the finish line. And then I heard a cowbell, and I knew I was going to be done. And this was one really long day of highs and lows, and it was the best one day of adventure I've ever had. And that's why I want to do it again. You never know what is going to happen in this one day.
Holy cow.
You did it.
You didn't know I quit. I quit once.
Well, you didn't quit. Here you are.
Oh man.
Good job.
Oh man. That's something.
One of my best stories from this race is after mile 40, and it's starting to get dark and it's dusk. I've got my headlamp on and I'm running, feeling good, and I'm running towards this white barn, and I can see that there's a big gaping hole in the barn, so the barn door's open. And I'm kind of getting freaked out because it looks like I'm kind of going towards the barn, and in my mind I'm like, I hope I don't have to go anywhere near that barn and that open door. And I'm running and running. I keep getting closer and closer to the barn, and the next thing I know, I'm gonna have to go in the barn. And that's when I realized that it's not a barn at all, and it's not a barn door. It's the highway underpass, and the white barn is the cement of the highway underpass, and the black door is the tunnel underneath the highway. So going underneath the tunnel in the highway was no better than going into a barn, a dark barn. I ran through that tunnel so fast, and when I got to the other side, I didn't even look where I was going. There were marks on the ground in spray paint, arrows where to go, and I didn't even look. I just went. And about 20 minutes later, I hadn't seen any markings for a while, and I didn't know if I was on the course or not. And I'm like, did I not look at the markings after the underpass? But I was on course, and then I did finally reach my husband and the next checkpoint shortly thereafter. But yeah, if you are running this race and you're running towards a white barn in the dark, it's Highway 94. I want to do it again. I just think it is the most stellar landscape, and I love the North Dakota Badlands. So I want to go back. I know what the course is like. I know that mile 20 to 25 is really rough. And so I want to go back and have a more realistic expectation of my race, what my race time could be, and have patience with myself when I have the lows. And I want to try it again and try for a little better time this time. Not take so much time at the aid stations. It didn't matter that I did that, and if I have to do it again, so be it. But it is kind of fun trying to better your time, and I'll be back.